Okay, so once again, good day everyone. So our topic for this is about ethical and social issues in information system. So after completing this module, you should be able to answer the following questions. Number one, what political, social, and ethical challenges are brought no, up by the information system? What specific conduct roles can be utilized to direct moral choices? And why do the internet and modern information system technology make it harder to safeguard people's privacy and intellectual property? And what effects have information system had on a daily life? Undoubtedly, no, the past 10 years have been among the most ethical difficult, no. A short selection of recent instances showing a poor ethical judgment on part of senior and middle managers, no. And this ethical and business judgment error happen in a variety of different industries. And managers who break the law that are found guilty will most certainly serve time in prisons in today's modern legal system. So again, it's very challenging. No, business are now urged to work with prosecutors to lower penalties against the entire company for impeding investigations, even if in the past they would frequently pay for the legal defense of these personnel involved in civil level suits. Okay, so to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our first presenter this afternoon. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi everyone. My topic for today shall include Chapter 4, Part 1 of Ethical and Social Issues of Information Systems. My name is Angelica Coscaluela and I will be your presenter for today. The learning objectives of this first part of the chapter shall include understanding ethical and social issues related to systems. Ethics is an information society. After this discussion, we will be able to answer the following questions. What ethical, social, and political issues are raised by information systems, and what specific principles for conduct can be used to guide ethical decisions? But first, let us define the following. Information systems are one of the major tools available to business managers for achieving operational excellence, developing new products and services, improving decision making, and achieving competitive advantage. Ethics refers to the principles of right and wrong that individuals acting as free moral agents use to make choices to guide their behaviors. In the past years, we have witnessed one of the most ethically challenging periods for the United States and global businesses. In this table, it provides a small sample of recent cases demonstrating failed and ethical judgment by senior and middle managers. These lapses in the ethical and business judgment occurred across a broad spectrum of industry. The major instances of failed ethical and legal judgment were not masterminded by Information Systems Department. However, information systems were instrumental in many of these frauds. In many cases, the perpetrators of these crimes artfully used the financial reporting information systems to bury their decisions from public scrutiny in the vain hope they would never be caught. Here is the model for thinking about ethical, social, and political issues. As mentioned, ethical, social, and political issues are closely linked to one another. The introduction of new technology has a ripple effect in the current equilibrium, creating new ethical, social, and political issues that must be dealt with on individual, social, and political levels. Both social and political institutions require time before developing new behaviors, rules, and laws. The ethical dilemma you may face as a manager of information systems typically is reflected in social and political debate. So here is the five moral dimension of information age. On the set diagram, we can observe the following. Information rights and obligations, which include what information rights do individuals and organizations possess with respect to themselves and what can they protect. The example of which are privacy, website privacy, spyware, cookies. The next one is the property rights and obligations. It mentions how will traditional intellectual property rights be protected in a digital society in which tracing and accounting for ownership are difficult and ignoring such property rights is so easy. The example for this are trade secret, copyright, and patent. Following this, we have the accountability and control. It includes who can and will be held accountable and liable for the harm done to individual and collective information and property rights. Following this, we have the system quality, which includes what standards of data and system quality should be demanded to protect individual rights and the safety of society. The example for this is computer crime, spunk as junk email. Lastly, we have the quality of life. What values should be preserved in an information and knowledge based society? Which institutions should we protect from violation? Which cultural values and practices are supported by the new information technology? The example for this are the repetitive stress injury, computer vision syndromes, and technostress. More details shall be discussed in the part 2 for the five dimension of information system. The key technology trends that rise ethical issues. Here are the examples of the following. Computing power doubles every 18 months. Data storage costs rapidly decline. Data analysis advances. Networking advances. Mobile device growth impact. The doubling of computing power every 18 months has made it possible for most organizations to use information systems for their core production processes. As a result, our dependence on systems, vulnerability to system errors, and poor data quality have increased. Number two, advances in data storage techniques and rapidly declining storage have enabled for multiplying databases on individuals maintained by private and public organizations. These advances in data storage have made the routine violation of individual privacy both cheap and effective. Advances in data analytics techniques enable companies and government agencies to use profiling to determine detailed information about individuals' habits and tastes. In this figure, we can see that there is a new data analysis technology called non-obvious relationship awareness or NORA. This can take information about people from many disparate sources, such as employment applications, telephone records, customer listings, and wanted lists, and correlate relationships to find obscure hidden connections that might help identify criminals or terrorists. Number four, networking advances. These are the copying data from one location to another and accessing personal data from remote locations are much easier. Following this is the mobile device growth impact, wherein individual cell phones may be tracked without user consent or knowledge. Here are the ethics in an information society. We can define ethical choices as the decisions made by individuals who are responsible for the consequences of their action. So we can mention that responsibility is a key element of ethical action. This means that you accept the potential costs, duties, and obligations for the decisions you make. Accountability is a feature of systems and social institutions. It means that mechanisms in place to determine who took responsible action and who is responsible. Systems and institutions in which it is impossible to find out who took what action are inherently incapable of ethical analysis or ethical actions. Liability is defined wherein an extent the concept of responsibility further to the area of laws. It is a feature of political systems in which a body of laws is in place that permits individuals to recover the damages done to them by other actors, systems, or organizations. Due process is a related feature of law governed societies and is a process in which laws are known and understood. There is an ability to appeal to higher authorities to ensure that the laws are applied correctly. These basic concepts form the underpinning of an ethical analysis of information systems and those who manage them. It can be observed that information technologies are filtered through social institutions, organizations, and individuals. Systems do not have impacts by themselves. Whatever information system impacts exist are products of institutional, organizational, and individual actions and behaviors. Responsibility for the consequences of technology falls clearly on the institutions, organizations, and individual managers who choose to use the technology. Using information technology in a socially responsible manner means that you can and will be held accountable for the consequences of your actions. In an ethical political society, individuals and others can recover damages done to them through a set of laws characterized by due process. Analyzing ethical issues. When confronted with a situation that seems to present ethical issues, how would you analyze it? The following are the five-step process should help you. Number one, identify and describe the facts clearly. Find out who did what to whom and where, when, and how. In many instances, you will be surprised at the errors in the initially reported facts, and often you will find that simply getting the facts straight helps define the solution. It also helps to get the opposite parties involved in an ethical dilemma to agree on the facts. Next is to define the conflict of dilemma and identify the higher order values involved. Ethical, social, and political issues always reference higher values. The parties to a dispute all claim to be pursuing higher values such as freedom, privacy, protection of property, and the free enterprise system. Typically, an ethical issue involves a dilemma. It is a two diametrically opposed courses of action that support worthwhile values. Number three, identify the stakeholders. Every ethical, social, and political issue has stakeholders. These are the players in the game who have an interest in the outcome, who have invested in the situation, and usually who have vocal opinions. Find out the identity of these groups and what they want, because this will be useful later when designing a solution. Number four, identify the options that you can reasonably take. You may find that none of the options satisfy all the interests involved, but some options do a better job than the others. Sometimes, arriving at a good or ethical solution may not always be a balancing or consequences to stakeholders. Lastly, identify the potential consequences of your options. Some options may be ethically correct but disastrous from other points of views. Other options may work in one instance but not in other similar instances. Always ask yourself, what if I choose this option consistently over time? So once your analysis is complete, what ethical principles or rules should you use to make decisions? We have enlisted some of the examples, such as the Golden Rule, wherein do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Putting yourself into the place of others and thinking of yourself as the object of the decision can help you think about fairness in decision making. The next one is Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. If an action is not right for everyone to take, it is not right for anyone. Ask yourself, if everyone did this, could the organization or society survive? Number three, Descartes' rule of change. If an action cannot be taken repeatedly, it is not right to take at all. This is the slippery slope rule. An action may bring about a small change now that is acceptable, but if it is repeated, it would bring unacceptable changes in the long run. In the vernacular, it might be stated as once started down a slippery path, you may not be able to stop. Number four, utilitarian principle. It means take the action that achieves the higher or greater value. This rule assumes you can prioritize values in rank order and understand the consequence of various courses of action. Number five, risk aversion principle. Take the action that produces the least harm or the least potential cost. Some actions have extremely high failure costs of very low probability, like building a nuclear generating facility in an urban area, or extremely high failure cost of moderate probability, wherein speeding and automobile accidents occur. Avoid these high failure cost actions, paying greater attention to high failure cost potential of moderate to high probability. Lastly, you can use the ethical no free lunch rule, wherein assume that virtually all tangible and intangible objects are owned by someone else, unless there is a specific declaration otherwise. If something someone else has created is useful to you, it has value, and you should assume the creator wants compensation for his work. Professional codes of conduct. There are groups of professionals such as American Medical Association or AMA, the American Bar Association or ABA, the Association of Information Technology Professionals, AITP, and the Association of Computing Machinery, ACM. They take responsibility for the partial regulation of their professions by determining entrance qualifications and competence. Codes of ethics are promises by professionals to regulate themselves in the general interest of society. For example, avoiding harm to others, honoring property rights, including intellectual property, and respecting privacy are among the general moral imperatives of the ACM's Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Here are the example of ethical dilemmas. Ethical dilemmas created when one set of interests are pitted against another, such an instance when the right of the company to prevent its workforce from wasting company resources is pitted against the rights of employees against privacy, some of which includes voice recognition software, which reduces the need for human operators by enabling computers to recognize a customer's responses to a series of computerized questions. And number two, a company may argue that it has a right to use information systems to increase productivity and reduce the size of its workforce to lower costs and stay in business. So based on our given questions earlier, what ethical, social, and political issues are raised by information systems? Information technology is introducing changes for which laws and rules of acceptable conduct have not yet been developed. Increasing computer power, storage, and networking capabilities, including the Internet, expand the reach of individual and organizational actions and magnify their impacts. The ease and anonymity with which information is now communicated, copied, and manipulated in online environments pose new challenges to the protection of privacy and intellectual property. The main ethical, social, and political issues raised by information systems center around information rights and obligations, property rights and obligations, accountability and control, system quality, and quality of life. For the number two, what specific principles for conduct can be used to guide ethical decisions? We have mentioned six ethical principles for judging conduct, which include the Golden Rule, Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, Descartes' rule of change, the utilitarian principle, the risk aversion principle, and the ethical no free lunch rule. These principles should be used in conjunction with an ethical analysis. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Okay, so thank you, Madam, no, for your presentation. Again, the following, there are some moral dimension are among the main ethical, social, and political challenges brought up by information systems. So as our presenter mentioned, rights and obligations regarding informations, no, legal obligations in property rights, no, control and accountability, system performance, and life equality, no. So information technology came long before ethical concerns. So however, information technology has increased ethical problems, no, stress current social structure, and rendered some laws either completely or significantly ineffective. And these ethical strains are caused by four major technical trends, which are, of course, uh, computing power doubles every 18 months, no? Imagine that, no? And the impact, of course, more organizations depend on computer system for critical operations. Another is data storage costs rapidly decline, no? And again, the data analysis advances, network advances, and mobile device growth impact, no? Alam naman natin today, no, how mobile devices now now so many private and public companies now store numerous database on individuals, no, including employees, customers, and potential customers. And this is due to improvements in data storage technique and fast failing storage prices, no. And these developments in data storage have been routinely violating people's privacy, cheap and efficient, no. Big businesses can afford to use very large data storage system for customer identifications that can handle terabytes of data. So yun yung mga ano ngayon.
Noted, sir. For the second part po of chapter 4, I will turn you over po to Mr. Carl Coscolvela. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, fellow classmate. Would like to ask if you can now see our share screen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Audible, di ba?
All right. But before I start, once again, good afternoon, my fellow classmates. Maulan na hapon sa ating lahat and our beloved Dean. And thank you, Dean, even though I know you're very busy, but we'll make this quick. It's just that my recording is not yet ready, Dean, because I want to add some inputs or thoughts with this topic, especially that the book itself kasi focus more on the jurisdiction of Europe, Canada, US, and the bills or laws that were cited here applies to those jurisdiction and not to the Philippine jurisdiction. So would like to cite some Republic Acts, or let's say issuances, and then that were recently passed by Congress, and then not recently though, in 2012. At the same time, I think the book was published and was not considered. But anyway, to start, my topic's about information rights, privacy, and freedom in the internet age. So privacy is the claim of individuals to be left alone, free from surveillance or interference from other individuals or organizations, including the state, which is a basic right, which is part of our Bill of Rights, even here in the Philippines and other jurisdictions, privacy. Okay. Information technology and system threatens individual claims to privacy by making the invasion of privacy. Yes, because in 2013, Data Privacy Act was not yet, for some legislator, was not essential because the technology by that time is is very different compared nowadays. The claim to privacy is protected in US, Canada, Germany, German constitutions in a variety of different ways, and in other countries through various statutes or let's say laws. Okay, so just to give you a timeline of information system and privacy. So in 1973, creation of fair information practice of U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. In 1974, the Privacy Act of 1974. In 1988, FTC restated and extended the original FIP to provide guidelines for protecting online privacy and passing of COPPA in 1999. So these acts actually influence our existing Data Privacy Act of 2012. So this has been part of the framework that was crafted by Congress and then an implementing rules and regulations issued by our National Privacy Commission. Next slide, please. So what is a fair information practices? So most Americans and European privacy law is based on this regime, first set forth in a report written in 1973 by a federal government advisory committee. Next is a set of principles governing the collection and use of information about individuals. FIP principles are based on the notion of mutuality of interest between the record holder and the individual. So I guess just to relate this one with our Data Privacy Act, basically this is we have the processor, the PIP, and the PIC, I guess, the controller and the processor. Okay. The individual has an interest in engaging in a transaction, and the record keeper, usually a business or government agency, requires information about the individual to support the transaction. Once information is gathered, the individual maintains an interest in the record, and the record may not be used to support other activities without the individual's consent. That's why, to relate this as well with Data Privacy Act, a data sharing agreement is necessary or must be in place before, let's say, you execute or implement a certain solutions or let's say project right nowadays. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll skip with the next slide rather. Okay, so Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or the COPPA, requiring websites to contain parental permission before collecting information or on children under the age of 13. If you can see, if those to my fellow classmates na may mga anak na nag-aaral right now, especially with Google, you can notice that there is a parent, some kind of parent access, that you allow certain condition that your child can only access this website. Your child must seek first a password before they can download or let's say install an application. And at the same time, Google is very strict when it comes to children's personal information or personal sensitive information. So firms should adopt privacy by design, building products and services that protect privacy. Firms should increase the transparency of their data practices, and firms should require consumer consent and provide clear options to opt out of data collection schemes. Well, to be honest, I don't know if you will agree, you will all agree with me. Pag gumagawa naman talaga kayo ng account, di ba? Scroll down, accept terms and conditions, but you don't read the terms and conditions, right? 90%, or let's say 90 to 95% of us here do not read the terms and conditions, right? Kaya pag may nakikita kayo, usually, during when you utilize the application, oh, bakit ganito to? And then all of a sudden, you will go back to the terms and conditions. You will see, yes, it's part of the terms and conditions. Other proposed internet policy legislation focuses on the protecting the online use of personal identification numbers, such as social security numbers, protecting personal information collected on the internet that deals with individuals not covered by COPPA, and limiting the use of data mining for homeland security. Okay. What are the European directives on data protection? So in Europe, privacy protection is more stringent than in the United States. Unlike the United States, European countries do not allow businesses to use personally identifiable information without the consumer's prior consent. I guess my fellow classmate here, JC, would attest to that because he worked for William Hill for a couple of years, and he's part of the VIP services, and he knows pretty well that when it comes to data privacy law, European countries or the UK, especially UK government, is very strict when it comes to data protection compared to US and even in the Philippines. They really, because nowadays they consider data as the new gold, diba? It's very essential for them because right now, once you have a lot of phishing activities in the UK, nabi-victimize nila yung mga mga tao. They can do financial transactions in banks, online bankings, and not even in merchants because they have this personal information, which triggers the European government to be more strict or stringent in terms of data privacy. So in October 25, 1998, the European Commission's Directive on Data Protection went into effect, broadening privacy protection in European Union. The directive requires companies to inform people when they collect information about them, disclose how it will be stored and be used. So again, if I would relate this one in our Data Privacy Act of 2012, part of the data sharing agreement is you have to indicate the purpose of how you will use the personal or sensitive information. Diba? Nakalagay yan. It's just that our Data Privacy Act right now of 2012 is still in Congress pending revision due to the fact that financial transaction is not yet covered by the Data Privacy Act. Compared, unlike with the European Union and the United States, it's already part of their law. Okay. Next slide, please. I'll skip this one. So what are the internet challenges to privacy? So internet technology has posed new challenges for the protection of individual privacy. Information sent over these vast networks of network may pass through many different computers before it reaches final destination. Each of the system is capable of monitoring, capturing, storing communication that pass through it. I guess it's during the time this book was written or published. Well, the challenge in terms of privacy, internet transmission, in terms of was really let's say sabi pa nga nila napakahirap. It's because technology before is unlike our technology today. But I guess with our technology right now, a lot of security, not just policies and procedures, but solutions are already in place. So to make it more easier to regulate data privacy. So enlisted are the identified challenges to privacy. Monitoring and tracking of website visitors occurs in the background without the visitor's knowledge. Advertising networks such as Microsoft Advertising, Yahoo, DoubleClick that are capable of tracking personal browsing behavior across thousands of websites. And then of course, the cookies. Sa inyo kasi pag nakita niyo cookies to, sa tingin ko sa atin lahat all accept lang, Yes lang. So cookies are small text files deposited on a computer hard drive. When a user visits websites, cookies identify the visitor's web browser software and tracks a visit to the website. So kung napapansin nyo, it's some form of, not an AI, but rather it's recording. Kaya pag bumabalik kayo sa website na yon, nagtataka kayo. Di ba? Oh, bakit alam na niya? Minsan nga may suggested password pa. May suggested username pa. Okay. There are now even more subtle and surreptitious tools for the surveillance of internet users. So-called super cookies or flash cookies. But I guess flash cookies ended its support 2 to 3 years ago. Cannot be easily deleted, but can be installed whenever a person clicks on a flash video. So I guess flash ended its support 2 to 3 years ago, but now it's all HTML5. These so-called local shared object files are used by Flash to play videos and are put on the user's computer without their consent. Okay. Next slide, please. Number three is the marketers use web beacons as another tool to monitor online behavior. Web beacons, also called web bombs or simply tracking files, are tiny software programs that keep a record of users' online clickstream and report this data back to whoever owns the tracking file, invisibly embedded in email messages and web pages that are designed to monitor the behavior of the user visiting a website or sending an email. Next is a spyware. Spyware can secretly install itself on an internet user's computer by piggybacking on a larger application. Once installed, the spyware calls out to the website to send banner ads and other unsolicited materials to the user. So ito yung mga nakikita nyo kung before, kung ano-ano nilang lumalabas sa mga websites ninyo or mga pop-outs sa inyo. And it can report the user's movements on the internet to other computers. The United States has allowed businesses to gather transaction information generated in the marketplace and then use that information for other marketing purposes without obtaining the informed consent of the individual whose information is being used. But I guess with the recent amendment of the Data Privacy Act of the United States, I guess this has been amended already. Okay, next slide, please. So what are the technical solutions? In addition to legislation, there are few technologies that can protect user privacy during interaction with websites. Many of these tools are used for encrypting email, for marketing email or surfacing activities appear anonymous. May incognito na tayo ngayon. Dati wala tayong incognito. For preventing client's computer from accepting cookies, right now you have the option whether you will, once you enter the website, you will accept all the cookies or not, or detecting or eliminating spyware. Our cybersecurity has evolved so much that a simple attack can be prevented. Right now, even PDF files can be encrypted, not just email. And now we have emails that are, meron na kayong mga BCC, CC. BCC is so hindi nakikita. Emails can also be encrypted that only desired recipients can only view the email. Okay. Let's proceed with the property rights or the intellectual property. Contemporary information systems have severely challenged the 16 laws, social practices that protect private intellectual property. So, intellectual property is considered to be the intangible property created by individuals or corporations. So information technology has made it difficult to protect intellectual property because computerized information can be so easily copied or distributed on networks. It's just that with the evolution of technology, even here in the Philippines right now, Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines have introduced, aside from trade secrets, patent and copyright, they have introduced more models of how you can protect intellectual properties. In IT, what they do is, aside from trademark, copyright, patent, is they also use this certain, I don't know, utility model to protect source code. So to avoid other individuals or corporation from copying it. Okay. So first is the trade secret, any intellectual work of a formula, device, pattern, or compilation of data. The next slide, please, is copyright. So I'm assuming that more of you here are familiar with copyright. So copyright is a statutory grant that protects creators of intellectual property from having their work copied by others for any purpose during the life of the author plus an additional 70 years after the author's death. I guess in the Philippines, it's 50 years. I'm not sure, but before we have inquired with IPO, it's 50 years. Okay. Next one is patent. Okay. Patent grants the owner an exclusive monopoly on the ideas behind an invention for 20 years. I guess with the Philippines, it's 25 years. So the congressional intent behind patent law was to ensure that inventors of new machines, devices, or methods receive the full financial and other rewards on their labor, and yet widespread use of the invention, possibly by providing detailed diagrams for those wishing to use the idea under the license for the patent's owner. Usually what they do is they seek patent from US, but they also seek patent from other jurisdictions, no? To make sure na hindi sila nakokopya. Okay, next slide, please. So, challenge to intellectual property rights. First is the proliferation of electronic networks, including the internet, has made it even more difficult to protect intellectual property. Before, in 2013, I guess the problem here is more on yung mga ating mga crack. I believe you're familiar with crack, that even a Windows OS can be cracked. Mahilig tayo sa libre, especially the Filipinos, so lahat halos crack. So what Microsoft did, instead of doing selling license, is they have decided to shift to subscription. Okay. So before use of widespread use of networks, copies of software, books, magazines, articles, yung mga na-download natin na movies. Okay. So that's one of the challenges. Information can be illicitly copied from one place and distributed to other systems and network, even though these parties do not willingly participate in the infringements. Okay, next slide, please. So what is Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or DMCA of 1998? Well, this provides copyrights protection. The DMCA implemented a World Intellectual Property Organization treaty that makes it illegal to circumvent technology-based protections of copyrighted materials. Internet service providers are required to take down sites of copyright infringers they are hosting once ISPs are notified of the problem. If you're familiar with a kick-ass torrent sites, usually they block it. Ano ba yung isa? Pirate Bay. Okay. So they were taken down because one of the consideration is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Okay, next slide, please. So I'll proceed with accountability, liability, and control. Along with privacy and property laws, new information technologies are challenging existing liability laws and social practices for holding individuals and institutions accountable. So, first is the computer-related liability problems. For example, for a week in October 2011, millions of BlackBerry users around the world began experiencing disruptions to their email services, the most vital service provided by the smartphone maker, Research in Motion. The 3-day blackout of email involved users in Asia, Europe, Middle East, and Americas, and a substantial part of BlackBerry's installed base of 70 million users. After the outage, the RIM CTO for software, David Yap, said a blockade of messages to Europe created a cascading outage effect around the world. Okay. The company determined that the root cause of the initial European BlackBerry email service and said there was no evidence that a hack or security breach was involved. So meaning computer-related or hardware-related yung naging cause, okay, of that outage. So in terms of system quality, data quality, and system errors, the debate over liability and accountability for unintentional consequences of system use raises a related but independent moral dimension. What is an acceptable, technologically feasible level of system quality? At what point should system managers say, stop testing? We've done all we can to perform this software. But I hope later on with during this course, we would be able to tackle some ISO standards in terms of IMS or information security, which is also related to business continuity management and quality management system. Because all of those three are interrelated, and which is more, I think, will be further discussed. Okay. Individuals and organizations may be held responsible for avoidable and foreseeable consequences, which they have a duty to perceive and correct. Just to add, because with ISMS and BCMS, it's a standard that helps you to avoid pointing fingers, but rather it makes you accountable. At the same time, once you're accountable, may kusa ka. Di ba? That's why later on, I'll have a quick discussion about the ISMS, BCMS, and the quality management system. But the three principal sources of poor system performance are software bugs and errors, which is before software development life cycle is very different. Hardware or facility failures caused by natural or other causes. Before, there's cloud computing services is not readily available compared to today, and poor input data quality because of data management in the databases. Okay, next slide, please. So quality of life, equity, access, and boundaries. I'll start with balancing powers, center versus periphery. The shift toward highly decentralized computing, coupled with an ideology of empower of thousands of workers and the decentralization of decision-making to lower organizational levels, have reduced the fears of power of centralization in the government institution. Same with the Philippines. Before there was no DICT, before everything is under NTC, but the government created to decentralize power. They have created DICT. NTC is just an attached bureau of or agency of NTC. So right now, a good friend of ours became the USEC for e-government. Okay. Next slide, please, is the rapidity of change, reduced response time to competition. Information systems have helped to create much more efficient national and international markets. Today's more efficient global marketplace have reduced the normal social buffers that permitted businesses for many years to adjust to competition. The business you work for may not have enough time to respond to global competitors and may be wiped up in a year along with your job. We stand the risk of developing a just-in-time society with just-in-time jobs and just-in-time workplaces, families, and vacations. Next slide, please. Maintaining boundaries, family, work, and leisure. Even leisure time spent on the computer threatens these social relationships. True. Extensive internet use, even for entertainment or recreational purposes, take people away from their family and friends. Before, you used to bond, but with the introduction of internet, good luck sa mga bata sa kanilang mga iPad at mga cellphones. Among middle school and teenage children, it can lead to harmful antisocial behavior such as the recent upsurge in cyberbullying. Well, it has been rampant or been common during the pandemic. You've seen one of the adverse effect of this pandemic is children have poor social skills right now. Kasi they'd rather spend more time in gadgets rather than play with other kids, right? So that's one of the talagang threat nito. So dependence and vulnerability. Business, government, schools, and private associations such as churches are incredibly dependent on information system and are therefore highly vulnerable if the system fails, which is true. We have a one local government. Ang nangyari, because they're highly dependent with the system, natalo. Nagpalit ng administrasyon. Lahat binura. What happened is they have to start from scratch. Same with other institutions. This is common before. But right now, I guess with the technology that you can store in cloud, you can create backup. They have incremental backups. They have differential backups. So, mas madali na. Okay. Test results are often stored off campus. If the system were to shut down, there's no backup educational structure or content can be made up for the loss of system. I guess di naman po si WCC, you have your cloud computing services that you have your disaster recovery plan already in place. If ever that will happen. Computer crimes, crime and abuse. So computer crime is the commission of illegal acts that use of a computer or against a computer system. Okay, though it's act of lasciviousness, cyberbullying, may cyber libel na ngayon. Noon wala pa, may cyber libel na. Okay, computer abuse is a commission of acts again. So that may not be illegal but are considered unethical. Okay. Another one is spam, the most common one. Hindi po ito yung kinakain na spam na masarap, but spam rather spam ng email. Okay, spam is a junk email sent by an organization or individual to a mass audience of internet users who have expressed no interest in the product or service being marketed. I don't know, guys, if some of you here naabutan niyo pa yung email na wala pang spam mail, wala pang spam folder. Di ba maiinis kayo nung pag in-spam kayo kung ano-ano na? Bago nyo makita yung talagang email sa inyo, napuno na kayo na spam mail. But with the, well, thank God we have this technology. Nafi-filter na because of the AI. Nafi-filter na kung spam. Okay. Employment, trickle-down technology, and re-engineering job loss. So re-engineering work is typically hailed in the information systems community as a major benefit of the new information technology. It is much less frequently noted that redesigning business processes has cost millions of mid-level managers and clerical workers to lose their job. Well, we here, as I can disagree, because it's not because you automate, you have to reduce manpower. Okay. You automate kasi to make your business process or your process more efficient, but not to less or reduce manpower. Unless otherwise, okay, and there's a disclaimer, if yung manpower na yon is redundant naman talaga. Okay? It's because with that, kung gano'n na nangyayari, it means that nagkaroon kayo ng tamang review, nagkaroon kayo ng tamang proseso. It's not because they just want to kick you out or they just reduce manpower, but rather they're making their organization more efficient and siyempre cost efficient naman on the side of the management. Okay, next slide, please. Equity and access, increasing racial and social class cleavages. In the United States, there's a gap. There's a gap is narrowing. Higher income families in each ethnic group are still more likely to have more computers and internet access than lower income families in the same group. Again, this is 2013. Iba na tayo ngayon. Because of the pandemic, halos lahat are required to have their own mobile phones because classes are held online. And I think, ano na siya? It's not, hindi na siya luho ngayon, but rather a necessity. Okay. Form of communication, channel of communication, how you learn, how you interact, how you communicate. So I guess it's no longer a luho, but rather a necessity. Health risk, RSI, CVS, and techno stress. Okay. Carpal tunnel syndrome kasi, pag sobra kang pindot ng pindot. Okay. But right now, because of the voice command, pwede na tayong mga hindi na pumindot. Of course, yung inyong repetitive stress injury. Okay. Computer vision syndrome. Okay. That's why there's time lang talaga. So your eyes could rest. Okay. And the techno stress is stress induced by computer use. It's simply includes aggravation, hostility toward humans, impatience, and fatigue. Hindi ko alam kung yung bata kayo, napapansin nyo, pag sobra kayo na-addict sa computer, pabilis uminit ang ulo ninyo. Pero you don't notice it because pagod na kayo. Stress na kayo doon sa nilalaro. Alright, next slide please. Okay, by the way, that's the last slide. By the way, for more information, you may refer to the video below. Here's the link. I'll post these slides, upload these slides in the Google Drive at the same time a video later on that I will prepare for these slides. Once again, to my fellow classmates, thank you very much for listening and for your time. I have to turn you over to the next reporter or to our Dean. Thank you very much and have a great day.
May nag-raise ba ng hand? Yes, sir, Mark Aban. Ano ba yun? Clap ba yun? Clap. Okay, so, okay. So again, it is important for us to understand some legal and ethical considerations, especially when it comes to IT, information system. So a while ago, our presenter discussed about the data privacy, the cyber security, and a lot, even the patent and so on. So wherein sabi nga kanina ng presenter din, we have a law, we have a law already. But the implementation maybe, yung proper implementation will be hindi naman problem, but maybe a concern, prioritizing, is also another concern, especially right now, we need to accept the fact na lahat ng tao nasa social media. And hindi ganun ka-firm yung implementation na kung anong merong batas tayo ngayon. So siguro yun yung nakikita kong aspeto na dapat na pag-ukulan ng ating government agency, no? So I think that's it. Thank you very much sa mga presenters and congratulations. Galing ni Sir Carla.